Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review. And Dynamite just ended 5 minutes ago. And tonight on Dynamite, it was night one of Fyter Fest. And what an awesome show it was tonight. The show really delivered. This was from the DEB Center in Texas, in Cedar Park, Texas. And the crowd was hot through the night. We had good matches here on the show tonight. We had Jon Moxley defending the IWGP United States Championship against Karl Anderson. We had the FTW Championship on the line where Brian Cage defended the title against Ricky Starks. We saw Christian Cage versus Matt Hardy. Finally, both of these guys, their build in this feud has been great. And finally, we got the match tonight. We also saw Sammy Guevara. He ended up taking on Wheeler Yuta. I think that's how you pronounce his name. But he made his debut on Dynamite tonight. And he was also in a match on AEW Dark Elevation on Monday, which I didn't see. We also saw Yuka Sakazaki versus Penelope Ford. And in the main event, Darby Allin versus Ethan Page in a Coffin match. But overall, night one of Fyter Fest on Dynamite, it was an awesome show. And like I said, the crowd was hot and the matches were good in my opinion. But let's get started with the review. So night one of Fyter Fest on Dynamite kicked off with the IWGP United States Championship on the line. Jon Moxley defending the title against Karl Anderson. And this was a very good match. This was a very entertaining match from both of these guys. Moxley came out along to Wild Thing. And then Karl Anderson made his way out along with Doc Gallows. So both of them were in the ring. And Eddie Kingston ended up attacking Doc Gallows with a pipe. And they were battling on the floor. And they were battling at the barricade. And they ended up battling through the crowd. And so the match got underway with Moxley ended up throwing Karl Anderson into the corner. Moxley was laying some chops to Karl Anderson. And the crowd was behind Moxley through this match. Of course, no surprise there. So we had Moxley and Anderson. They were throwing forearms in the center of the ring. Anderson ended up cutting off Moxley, hitting the ropes, and delivered an uppercut to Moxley. So both Anderson and Moxley ended up on the floor. Moxley threw Anderson into the barricade, started beating him around ringside. So we had both of them on the apron. Moxley ended up getting knocked off, and he went towards the barricade. So Moxley went back into the ring. Anderson was swinging away on Moxley. Both of them ended up on the second rope, and Moxley delivered a suplex, which sent Karl Anderson to the mat. Moxley was looking to go for another suplex, and both Moxley and Anderson end up hitting double clotheslines twice. So they did 2 double clotheslines twice. So Moxley was looking to go for a sleeper hold on Karl Anderson. He ended up switching it up and delivered a pile driver, but it got blocked by Anderson. Anderson then delivered a kick, and he drived Moxley to the mat. Went for the cover, which Moxley kicked out at 2. So at the end of the match, we had Moxley deliver the paradigm shift to Karl Anderson. Went for the cover, and there you go. Moxley ended up winning the match, retaining the IWGP United States Championship. But this was a good match. Moxley still walking out the IWGP United States Champion, and both him and Karl Anderson delivered in this match. Very entertaining match here. And then we saw Lance Archer and Jake Roberts. Lance Archer was talking with Roberts about it being so simple who Moxley's next challenger should be. Archer ended up bringing up how Moxley took the title from him a year ago. And as time, he gets his rematch. Archer ended up saying that they had a Texas death match in Japan. So Archer was like, oh, Moxley, how about we have another Texas death match? How about we have another one next week? Which that match is already booked for Night 2 of Fyter Fest next week. So we're going to see that match happen next week with the IWGP United States Championship on the line. And that's going to be a pretty good match there. You'll see Lance Archer and Moxley go at it again. And then we saw Alex Abrahantes. Alex Abrahantes, he was talking with Andrade El Idolo. Andrade had his assistant next to him. No Vicky Guerrero. So Andrade ended up cutting off Alex Abrahantes. And he had a question for him. So Andrade was like, where is the Death Triangle? And he ends up telling Alex Abrahantes to give the Death Triangle a message. And his message was, El Idolo is looking for them. So there you go. That was what Andrade had to say, but pretty quick little interview with Andrade. And then we had the FTW Championship on the line. Brian Cage defended the title against Ricky Starks. And Taz was on commentary for the match. We had Powerhouse Will Hobbs out there and Hook. And I'm like, when I saw Hook there, I'm like, what was with Hook's hair tonight? Oh, I found his hairstyle tonight just very laughable, in my opinion. But this was a good match here. This was entertaining from Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. So the match started off with Brian Cage. He went to work on Ricky Starks. He did a military press to Starks into a slam. Starks got sent into the corners, a bunch of times. Cage ended up yanking the rope up and down. He then slammed Starks down to the mat. And this was in Ricky Starks' hometown. So the crowd was behind Ricky Starks right then and there because, like I said, this was in his hometown. So Starks ended up running into the corner. Starks ended up delivering a boot to Cage's bicep. And Starks ended up delivering a missile drop kick, a second rope missile drop kick to Brian Cage. So Starks was on the outside. He ended up getting the FTW Championship. Cage ended up following him, and he ended up smacking Ricky Starks. So he ended up tossing the title in the ring. Cage ended up trying to throw Starks into the ring post. Starks ended up delivering a clothesline to Brian Cage. And we had a "This is awesome" chant break out from the crowd. Starks ended up trying to go for a rear naked choke, but Brian Cage ended up jamming him into the corner. Cage delivered a boot to Ricky Starks' face. Tried to go for a German suplex, but he ended up switching to a pump handle slam. Went for the cover, and Ricky Starks ended up getting his boot under the ropes. And the crowd went wild when that happened, when Starks ended up getting his boot under the bottom rope. So at the end of the match, Ricky Starks ended up getting the FTW Championship. Hobbs end up yanking it away from him. Starks end up turning around. He goes into a F5. Went for the cover, but end up kicking out. So Hook end up distracting the referee. Hobbs end up jumping up with the FTW Championship. And he ends up knocking out Brian Cage. And Ricky Starks end up delivering the spear. So Ricky Starks went for the cover. And there you go. We crowned a new FTW champion in Ricky Starks. So Ricky Starks is the new FTW champion. So Taz was happy about that on commentary. And it looked like right there that it was the plan for Hobbs to help Ricky Starks win the FTW championship. So you could tell right there. So then we saw Team Taz. They end up celebrating as they went up the ramp. And that was that. But overall, this was a good match from both Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. Crowned the new FTW champion. And then we had Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes ended up coming out to the commentary table. And he ended up cutting a promo on Malachi Black. Of course, Malachi Black, better known as Aleister Black when he was in WWE. He made his debut last week on Dynamite. We did not see his debut coming because he had a 90-day clause where he couldn't compete in WWE. But we actually found out that they made an error and that he didn't have 90 days. He had 30 days, which was an error on WWE's part. And that's why we saw Malachi Black last week on Dynamite make his debut. But what a moment it was last week when Black, made his debut attacking Arn Anderson and Cody Rhodes. So Cody Rhodes ended up cutting a promo on him. He ended up saying that he understands Malachi Black wants to take out a franchise player to be a franchise player. But Cody was like, knocking out someone like Arn Anderson is not the way to do it. Cody ended up saying that he doesn't feel like he's getting his point across. So he ended up getting on the mic because Cody was on the headset on commentary. So he wanted the mic. He wanted to get his point out. So Cody got on the mic. He ended up heading down to the ring. Cody ended up saying that he feels like fighting. He ends up calling for Malachi Black to come out. So Black was on the screen. Black ended up asking Cody if he heard the crowd when he knocked out Arn Anderson and him. Black ended up telling a story about a horse that won numerous titles. But he ended up saying that once that horse couldn't win and was in pain, it was time to put down his horse. So Cody ended up telling Black to come down to the ring and face him. So we had the lights go out in the arena. Then as the lights came back on, Aleister Black was in the ring. He got a huge pop from the crowd. So Cody and Black, they start swinging at each other. And I like the suits that both of them wore. Cody was wearing, white, and then Malachi was wearing a black suit. So that looked cool. So the two of them started swinging in the ring. We had officials and referees end up rushing in to separate the both of them, which got boos from the crowd. I'm like, let them fight. But that was how the segment ended. But overall, this was very enjoyable. And I am looking forward to the feud between Cody and Malachi Black. It's going to be amazing. There's going to be an amazing feud between the both of them. But really looking forward to it. We're really looking forward to where they're going to go now with Cody and Malachi Black. So then we saw Tully Blanchard. Tully Blanchard ended up walking down the hallway by himself. And Alex Marvez ended up going to talk with Tully Blanchard about his cheap shot on Conan last week. So Santana and Ortiz were there. Santana and Ortiz ended up telling Blanchard that he's got some stones to walk the hallways on his own. So both Santana and Ortiz, they end up going to smack Tully Blanchard with a pipe, but they don't end up doing it. So Santana and Ortiz were like, we were taught to respect our elders. So the both of them end up warning Tully that they won't be so nice next time. And they end up telling Tully to get his boys, Dax Harwood, Cash Wheeler, FTR. So Santana and Ortiz, they are not done with FTR. They are not done with Harwood and Wheeler. That was that. And then we saw Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone was in the ring. He ended up introducing Hangman and Page. Pop for Hangman and Page there from the crowd. Page ended up getting to the ring. And Page, he ended up saying that he has said he'll be AEW World Champion since day one. And he ended up saying that he tried to run and hide from it. He was like, the Dark Order is right. He still needs the title. So Page was trying to go on to challenge for the AEW World Championship, and he got interrupted by Don Callis. Don Callis ended up coming out along with the Bucks, the Good Brothers, Brandon Cutler, and Kenny Omega. Callis ended up saying that Page knows that he's not that guy that can take the title. Matt Jackson ended up saying that he's going to say something to Page's face. So Matt Jackson ended up popping in the ring. He ended up asking Page if he remembers them, the best friends that Page abandoned for a bunch of losers. Of course, he was referring to the Dark Order. So Matt ended up saying that he can tell Page is still hitting the bottle, which hits the narrative of the sad, lonely cowboy that's drunk and by himself in the end. Matt went on to say that only Page has himself to blame for that. But Matt was like, oh, let's face it, Page, you're the next great wrestling tragedy. So Matt ended up saying that he doesn't have the balls, that Page doesn't have the balls to hit him. So Page ended up hitting Matt Jackson. Omega ended up trying to go for a cheap shot from behind with the AEW World Championship. And the Dark Order, all the Dark Order, ended up coming out and they made the save. They made the save for Page. So Page ended up saying that he came here tonight for a match and that he's not leaving until he gets one. So Kenny Omega ended up grabbing a mic. Omega ended up saying that they can do that. How about we have a 5 versus 5 elimination style match where it's the Dark Order, Hangman and Page versus the Elite. So Page ended up telling Omega that he doesn't want that match. But if that's what they have to do, then so be it. So Page ended up saying that when they win, when the Dark Order and him win the match, he gets a title shot. He gets a shot at the AEW World Championship. And that some of the Dark Order get a shot at the tag team titles against the Young Bucks. So we had all the Elite. They ended up pulling up. Omega looked like he seemed to have a plan. So Omega ended up saying that Page is making a lot of demands and that the Elite isn't getting anything in exchange. So Omega ended up saying that if they win, if the Elite wins, none of them get title shots. The Dark Order doesn't get a shot at the Young Bucks for the tag team titles, and Hangman and Page won't get his shot at Kenny Omega for the AEW World Championship. So Page ended up saying that Omega is actually just afraid of falling in an attempt to get him to go away. He ended up saying that neither he nor the Dark Order back down from a fight. And he's on. So there you go. That was the segment, though. But it was a very intense segment. But I sense Kenny Omega versus Hangman and Page with the title on the line, with the AEW World Championship is on the line. It's not going to happen until All Out. I think we're going to get that match at All Out in September. And that's going to be a great match to see. You'll see an Omega and Page go at it. So that's probably not going to happen until All Out. So then we saw Alex Marvez. Alex Marvez was talking to Chris Jericho backstage about MJF's stipulations that Jericho has to get through for a match. Jericho ended up telling Marvez that he doesn't care what MJF puts in front of him, and that he will walk through fire to get to MJF. So Shawn Spears ended up walking in. He ended up jamming a chair in Jericho's throat. So MJF ended up saying that he just wanted to return the favor with that chair shot, and that next week's match will be a match against Shawn Spears. So it's going to be Jericho versus Shawn Spears next week on night 2 of Fyter Fest. So he ended up saying that MJF ended up saying that Spears can use a chair in the match, but Jericho can't. So then Shawn Spears ended up hitting Jericho's elbow with the chair. And that was that. So there you go. For next week, it's going to be Shawn Spears versus Chris Jericho. Spears can only use the chair, but Jericho can't. So there you go. And then we had Matt Hardy versus Chris Jericho. Good match here. The build in this feud between Matt Hardy and Christian Cage has been really good. And we finally got the match tonight between the both of them. So the match started off with both Hardy and Christian Cage in a tie-up. They ended up spilling out to the floor, which both of them didn't break the hold. Christian ended up taking a side headlock, and he slipped into the ring. He ended up dropping Matt Hardy, and he ended up tripping Matt Hardy, threw Matt Hardy into the barricade. Christian then went to the top rope and delivered a splash down onto Matt Hardy on the floor. So we had Matt Hardy and Christian Cage. They were battling at ringside. Matt Hardy then delivered a DDT on the ring steps to Christian Cage. So Matt Hardy then ended up choking Christian against the bottom rope. Christian tried to fight back, and Matt Hardy then catapulted Christian neck first into the second rope, and he landed a elbow drop to Christian. He went for the cover. Christian ended up kicking out at 2. So Matt Hardy was up on the second rope, and Christian ended up sweeping out his legs, and Matt Hardy ended up just dropping down to the mat. So Christian then choked Matt Hardy over the second rope. He ended up leaping out to the floor and punched Matt Hardy in the face. So Matt Hardy ended up delivering a suplex to Christian Cage. He ended up trying to end the match in the ring and delivered a low blow. And Matt Hardy delivered a twist of fate to Christian. And he went for the cover, which Christian ended up kicking out of the twist of fate. And Matt Hardy couldn't believe it. So Matt Hardy then locked in the leech, which is his submission, out on the floor to Christian Cage. And the referee was starting up the 10 count. So Christian ended up coming into the ring, and Christian ended up delivering the kill switch to Matt Hardy. He went for the cover, and there you go. Christian ended up winning the match. He is still undefeated since coming to AEW. So there you go. Christian Cage ended up winning the match. Post-match, the Hardy family office ended up surrounding the ring, and Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus end up coming out. No Marco Stunt. So they came running out to back away the Hardy family office, and that was basically that. But overall, this was a good match between Matt Hardy and Christian Cage. So then we had a video package which featured Miro, the TNT champion. So Miro ended up telling a story about a hero who was lost because he wasn't being himself. Miro ended up saying that a voice from above came in and allowed him to remember who he was. He ended up saying that the hero wasn't a selfish man, and that this man forgave everyone who wronged him, and his reward was the TNT Championship. Miro ended up saying that he's willing to defend the TNT Championship not only for his life, but the life of his opponent. And that's why he ended up calling himself the Redeemer. And we saw the TNT Championship is now in a white strap, and it had green on the title plate. I say it looked pretty cool. That's all what Miro had to say. And then we saw Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone was in the ring. He ended up introducing Britt Baker, the AEW Women's World Champion. So Britt Baker ended up coming out. She hugged Tony Schiavone. So Tony ended up talking with Britt Baker about Nyla Rose putting her through a table, and that people are worried about Britt Baker's well-being. So Britt Baker ended up saying, don't worry, she's dealt with worse, and that the wound's healed. And she ended up saying it's why she's the baddest bitch on the block. Britt Baker ended up saying that imagine winning the title and finding out her challenger is Nyla Rose. So Britt Baker was like, yes, Nyla Rose has beaten her before, and right now she is in a league of her own. Britt Baker ended up saying that she knows Vicky Guerrero is in the back listening, and that she has a last name that will keep her relevant forever, and that Nyla Rose doesn't. So Britt Baker ended up saying that she's the hottest thing in wrestling with that Women's World Championship. But even without it, she's still Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. So that was what Britt Baker had to say. And then it cut to the back. Vicky Guerrero was screaming at the camera. And she was saying that they were going to beat her ass next week. And Nyla Rose was like, oh, that ass whooping is going to be world class. So there you go. So we're getting that next week at night 2 of Fyter Fest. So Britt Baker versus Nyla Rose for the AEW Women's World Championship. And then we saw Jon Moxley backstage. He was responding to Lance Archer. And Moxley ended up saying that he's never beaten Archer, and that he survived him. Moxley ended up saying that he knows Archer is going to keep coming, and he will not be hunted. He's the hunter. Moxley ended up saying that there's only one boogeyman in AEW. So he wanted to say that next week, Lance Archer will be Texas dead. There you go. That was what Moxley had to say. Pretty decent promo from Moxley. And then we had Wheeler Yuta versus Sammy Guevara. I think that's how you pronounce his name, Wheeler Yuta. And he was out there along with Chuck Taylor, Chucky T, and Orange Cassidy. So we also saw the Bunny and the Blade. They were in the crowd watching the match. But this was a quick match here. It was back and forth between the both of them. Guevara got control of the match. He ended up pinning a shooting star press on Yuta. Went for the cover, which Yuta kicked out at 2. Guevara ended up heading back up to the top. He was looking to go for another shooting star press, but Yuta got his knees up. Yuta delivered a big back elbow in the corner to Sammy Guevara. He ended up nailing a springboard dropkick. Guevara ended up recovering. He ended up landing a double springboard cutter and went for the cover. And there you go. Sammy Guevara ended up winning the match. But overall, it was a quick match here. And then we saw Tony Schiavone. This was done earlier in the day. Tony Schiavone was talking with QT Marshall about his loss in the strap match to Cody Rhodes. So QT Marshall, he ends up being a jerk to Tony Schiavone. He ends up taking this mug and he pours coffee on Tony Schiavone's head. So Tony Schiavone was all covered in coffee. So that was that. QT Marshall acting like a dick to Tony Schiavone. And then we had Penelope Ford versus Yuka Sakazaki. And this was just a quick match here. This was your bathroom break match. So the match started off with Yuka Sakazaki end up using her best to get to Penelope Ford. So Sakazaki ended up landing a drop kick that sent Penelope Ford out to the floor. She ended up leaping up to the top rope and delivered a cannonball senton to Penelope Ford. The crowd was behind Yuka. So they went back into the ring. Sakazaki ended up getting a 1 count because Penelope Ford ended up kicking out at 1. Penelope Ford ended up throwing Yuka into the rope, started choking her against the middle rope. So, the end of the match, Yuka Sakazaki ended up dropping Penelope Ford. She ended up heading to the top rope. She ended up hitting the splash on Penelope Ford. She went for the cover. And there you go. Yuka Sakazaki ended up winning the match. But this was your bathroom break match. Did not care what was going on. So then we had the matches that we're going to see on night 2 of Fyter Fest next week on Dynamite. So we're going to be seeing Britt Baker versus Nyla Rose for the AEW Women's World Championship. Moxley versus Lance Archer, Texas Death Match, IWGP United States Championship on the line. Chris Jericho versus Shawn Spears, which Shawn Spears can legally use a chair in the match, but Jericho can't. And we're going to have Orange Cassidy versus The Blade. So those are the matches that we're going to be seeing next week for night 2 of Fyter Fest. Looks like it's going to be a decent show there. And then we had the main event, the Coffin match. Ethan Page versus Darby Allin. This was a very enjoyable main event. This was a very good match here. Crowd was behind Darby Allin all through this match. Because Darby Allin, he is awesome at what he does. And, of course, the Coffin match is just like, your Coffin match in WWE. The only way to win the match is you put your opponent in the coffin and close the lid. So Ethan Page ended up coming out first. He ended up looking at the coffin. And Darby Allin then came out. Darby Allin ended up skateboarding down to the ring. And he went right after Ethan Page. And that's when the match started. Darby Allin was shown wearing a steel plate on his back. And with him wearing that steel plate, he delivered a springboard coffin drop to Ethan Page, which sent Ethan Page out to the floor. And with Ethan Page out on the floor, Darby Allin delivered a suicide dive to him. So Darby Allin went to go lift open the coffin. And Scorpio Sky ended up knocking Darby Allin down. Scorpio Sky ended up throwing Darby Allin over the steps. And then we saw Sting. Sting ended up making his way to the ring. He was battling Scorpio Sky. He ended up tossing Scorpio Sky a couple of times into the barricade. And both Sting and Scorpio Sky were fighting into the crowd. So Page ended up looking to be taken off one of the ropes. And Sting ended up missing the Stinger Splash in the crowd. So Sting ended up crouching Scorpio Sky on a barricade. And he ended up smacking Scorpio Sky with a garbage can. So Darby Allin ended up throwing Ethan Page over the barricade. And both of them were battling it out in the crowd. So Darby Allin ended up diving down on Ethan Page, and he got caught. Darby Allin got caught by Ethan Page, and Page ended up sending Darby Allin spine first into the metal barricades. So both Darby Allin and Ethan Page were back in the ring. The bottom rope was gone as we saw Page end up sliding the ring steps into the ring, and he ended up sending Darby Allin down on the steps. Darby Allin was shown stumbling his way to the second rope. He ended up getting shoulder tackled by Page. So Page then ended up grabbing the steel hook of the turnbuckle that he undid. He ended up hooking the steel hook of the turnbuckle around Darby Allin's necklace, which he yanked Darby Allin hard. So Darby Allin then got out of it, and he ended up getting the hook, and he ended up putting the hook of the turnbuckle into Ethan Page's mouth, which was crazy to see. So Darby Allin ended up lining up the ring steps. He ended up drop kicking Page into the coffin as Darby Allin ended up making his way over. Page ended up yanking him into the coffin. They started throwing back and forth punches. Page ended up slapping Darby Allin in the face. Darby Allin then ended up biting Page's hand. So both guys went back to the ring. Page ended up walking up the ring steps with Darby Allin on his shoulders. Darby Allin ended up shoving Page off and ended up nailing a stunner. So Page was down on the ring steps as Darby Allin ended up going to the top. So Page ended up getting up. He ended up crotching Darby Allin. And Page ends up hitting the Ego's Edge on Darby Allin on the steps, which was crazy. Darby Allin ended up taking a hard hit on the steps there in that spot of the match. So Page was shown busted open. He was bleeding. Darby Allin, he ended up bringing Darby Allin near the coffin. Darby Allin ended up gouging Page's eyes, and he was biting him. Darby Allin then ended up grabbing a skateboard. He ended up going up to the top rope, and he delivers a double stomp with the skateboard on Page's back, which was cool. So Page ended up falling down into the coffin. Darby Allin then ended up shutting the lid of the coffin, and he won the match. So Darby Allin ended up winning the coffin match, which we all knew that he was going to win. So post-match, Darby Allin was celebrating on the turnbuckle. Darby Allin then looked down at the coffin. So he moves the coffin a bit, and he goes up to the top, and he delivers a coffin drop down onto the coffin. The coffin ends up breaking with Paige still inside of it. So, and that's one of the points there why Darby Allin is awesome at what he does. Darby Allin is a awesome superstar. He's great in the ring, and he's over with the crowd. You know, Darby Allin is on my list of top 5 favorites in AEW. But overall, this was a good main event. It was very entertaining, and both Darby Allin and Ethan Page delivered in this match. But that was Dynamite tonight. That was Fyter Fest Night 1. Next week, of course, will be Night 2. But anyways, that's it for my review of tonight's Dynamite. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. And until next video, which will be 2 videos coming up on Friday. It will be my movie review of Space Jam: A New Legacy, which I am seeing on Friday. So hopefully it's a good movie. Hopefully it's decent. Heard it's getting good reviews. So we'll see. So expect a movie review of that. And of course the SmackDown review. So those 2 videos will be coming your way on Friday. So until then, see you all later.